All right, good morning. Good morning. Oh, okay, all three of you. How about everybody else? Good morning. There we go. Thank you. That's a great question, right? It's graduation kind of Sunday. What year did you graduate? And I saw a couple of your faces. You went, the calendar doesn't go back that far. That's how long ago it was. Yeah. Some of you graduated when the world was black and white, and hadn't had color yet. So, hey, it's so good to be up here. Appreciate Pastor Matt asking me to speak this morning on graduation Sunday. And just full disclosure, I had my last kid graduated Friday night here, and so happy to get all three of my kids out of high school. And I want to brag on her real quick. She was co-valedictorian, and her overall grades, when you sum up everything together, she averaged a 99.9 as her grade in high school. As a whole. And somebody asked me, where did she, well, yeah, thank you. I'll take the applause for me. I'll shove it that way to her. Somebody asked me, where did that come from? And I got a 99 once in PE. So that's good. That's good. So it was not me, thank goodness, that she took after on that, but I strived at PE, so you just do what you got to do. But for all you graduates, we had some this hour. Of course, we have them at all of our campuses and our 11 service, and so we got them all diversified here. For some of the graduates in here today, if you're here, these last 13 years have been the best 13 years of your life. 2 of them got that joke, Matt. You'll get that joke later. It's only 12 grades. Somebody will get it. Come on, guys. 9 o'clock got that joke, and y'all are way smarter than them, all right? So that's the best joke I had, so it's downhill from here if you can't get that one, all right? No, but I was thinking about me. I graduated in 95, and so I want to show you a quick picture of my graduation night. We can see there's me and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Christy. It'd be awkward if it was my girlfriend and not my wife. I'd still show that, right? I'd just blur her out or something. But that was in 1995 out in Odessa, Texas, when I graduated. And that night, walked across the aisle, got my diploma. A couple things in my mind. Number one, I know this is going to be surprising if you know me. I thought I knew everything. And some of you, when you graduated, you thought you knew everything, right? I had all my thoughts in a row, all my ducks in a row. I had all the confidence in the world. I thought I knew it all. But as I look at that picture in 1995, I looked this week and gas was 96 cents a gallon. The good old days. I realized in that picture, the Atlanta Braves had not won a World Series yet. So that's how long ago that picture was. And I realized how much life has changed. And I remember as a senior in high school sitting in our living room, and I remember the news being on. And there was a report about this new thing coming to our world called websites. And I remember thinking, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would I buy a computer? Why would I put a computer in my house? Why would I go onto a computer and type in some magical numbers and I could read the news when I can just go outside and grab the newspaper? Like, that's crazy. Boy, I missed that one, didn't I? Absolutely. So back in my day, those were the things going on in 1995. But I had all my dreams, all my hopes. I thought I knew it all. But I was lacking one thing. And I dare to say when you graduated, you were lacking the same thing I was. And that's perspective. Because no matter how confident you are in yourself, how laid out your plans are in life, the one thing we don't have when we graduate high school is perspective, because we really haven't been there and done that just yet. So I began thinking, what if I could go back in time to that night? What would I tell my 18-year-old self? I thought of 3 things. I think spiritually, and I was a believer at 18, but I think I would tell myself something like this. Always connect with a great church, because the church is the hope of the world. Jesus didn't die for all kinds of other things. He died to establish the church, and it's the church's mission to carry the gospel forward. So always be connected like this to a great church. And then I started thinking, on the spiritual side, that's great. What about a health side? What would I say 30 plus years later? And I would tell my 18-year-old self, all the food you eat in your 20s and 30s comes back to haunt you in your 40s and 50s. And a bunch of you can say, amen to that? Yeah, absolutely. So stop going through the drive-thru so much because it'll come back and get you. And then I began thinking culturally. 1995 to 2026, radical shift in culture, massive shift in culture. And if I was there in 95 in Odessa talking to myself at 18 years old, I would tell them that as culture changes and all the pressures it puts on you and all the demands it has, never, ever, under any circumstance, at any time, cheer for Alabama football. And if you can get those three things down, God will bless you. God will bless you. All right? So, yeah. Matt allowed me to do that, so I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. So with that said, perspective is what I didn't have at 18. Perspective is not what I had. The beautiful thing about the Bible, it connects with us in everyday life from thousands of years ago today. And there was a guy by the name of Solomon. We're going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes. And Solomon is a unique person in the Bible. Not only did he have a kingdom and he was a king, the Bible says Solomon was so full of knowledge. The Bible says Solomon was the wisest man of his day. The Bible says Solomon was the richest man of his day. And I started doing some digging about the wealth of Solomon. And it says on the low end, Solomon net worth was over $100 billion. On the high end, it was over $1 trillion. Solomon was the wisest. He made a lot of bad decisions just because he was the wisest. He still made terrible decisions in his life at different times. But Solomon had anything and everything you could possibly want. He had all the money in the world. He had all the freedom in the world. He had all the power in the world. He had, unfortunately, all the women in the world. He had anything and everything he wanted. All he had to do was snap a finger, and he got. And even in that and having everything, he sits down and he writes a letter. We're calling it a letter, Ecclesiastes. And he goes through from chapter 1 to where we're at in chapter 12. And he's writing looking back with perspective to a young man, maybe his sons, maybe a bunch of young men in his kingdom, people maybe that are going to take over. And he's writing a wisdom letter giving them, I've had all this. Now towards the end of my life, I want to give you perspective of what's most important. And it's the same thing if you're graduating today. You're just starting out, and the Word of God is telling you, we're all amening a couple of these things. There's perspective there that we need you to have. So let's jump into our text, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, starting in verse 1. Solomon says this, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. We're going to read some metaphors here and kind of explain them as we go through. But the first phrase he says is, remember your Creator, remember God in the days of the youth. And I think the reason he says that is because when you're young, you're more impressionable. When you're young, life is simpler. The older you get, the more confusing life can become. And he doesn't just say that you're going to age. He says in the last half of this verse, before the days of trouble come. And if we're all sitting here and being honest with ourselves, we'd say the older we get, the more trouble tends to come. Because we know what happens as you get older. You think life may have been hard at 18, 28, 38, 48, 58, and on. It just gets harder so many times. Success plays a big part. Pleasure, relationships, money, achievements, comfort, marriage, kids. It's pressure and pressure and pressure as you get older. So he's saying before all that comes, remember God at the beginning. Because you don't want to spend your best years in your life running from God, only to come back when your life falls apart. So remember God in your youth. And look what he says in verse 2. Remember God before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, before the clouds return after the rain. He gives us an illustration here that age is coming for us all. And old age will bring trouble. And he wants us to remember, don't wait until suffering comes before you begin thinking about eternity. So he kind of gives us a heavy set right there. And we rotate into verse 3 here, and he kind of gives some practical of what's going to happen. Look in verse 3. When the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease to become, they are few, and those looking through the window grow dim. He gives us four things real quick. Let's walk through them. When the keepers of the house begin to tremble, it's a metaphor as you get older, things begin to shake, right? Your arms begin to shake, your hands begin to shake. You can't hang on to stuff the same way you used to when you were younger. When the strong men stoop, your legs, your back are not as strong as they used to be, and some people kind of start, instead of standing tall and strong, they become going down like that because old age comes that way. Your grinders cease because they are few. You know what that is? It's your teeth. Your teeth begin to fall out. Now, I couldn't imagine what this century and toothbrush and toothpaste, I don't know how they pulled that off. And I'm thankful that I wasn't born in that time frame. But over time, they begin to fade. And then it says, looking through the window grows dim. That's your eyesight. Your eyesight begins to fade. Now, some of you can relate to some of those. I know for me, I've hit the stage of life where when my wife sends me to the grocery store to pick up a couple items, I have kind of this male deficiency syndrome where I can't find anything at a grocery store. It doesn't matter. So we have a rule in my house. She takes a picture of it and sends it to me, and I just walk and just match the picture up. That's the only way I can do it. But every now and then, she doesn't have a picture, and she says, check this and check the ingredients, because we have some kids with some major allergies. So I've hit the point in my life where I pick up that can, I look at the ingredients, and you know what I do now? I pull out my phone, I take a picture, and then I enlarge the ingredients to know if I'm getting the right thing or not, because my eyes are growing dim. That's what happens, graduates, over time. Things peak, and then things start to fade. Isn't this encouraging for you as a graduate as we move forward? We're just giving clarity here. It does get better. It does get better. Let's look at verses 4 through 7 real quick. We're not going to comment a lot, but I want you to get the full impact of the metaphors. When the doors of the streets are closed and the sound of grinding fades when you stop working. When people rise up at the sound of birds, that's what some of you do super early in the morning, but all the songs grow faint. When the people are afraid of heights, I'm there already, and the dangers are in the streets. When the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desires no longer are stirred. I'll let you study that one later. Verse 6, remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowls are broken. Before the pitcher is shattered in the spring and the wheels broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. That's a mouthful to say. Solomon is telling these young people, human life is temporary. Eternity is forever. And we will grow old and eventually we will fade. But then he takes a somewhat depressing statement in 7 and he massively just ruins the whole moment in 8. This is a verse nobody has ever put on Facebook with a big smiley face or something. He says this in verse 8, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is what? Meaningless. Just uplifting, so encouraging. Here's what Solomon's saying. He's not saying there's no value in life. Certainly that's not what he's saying at all. What he's saying is apart from God, life has no lasting value. Big difference. Now that word meaningless in the Hebrew means a vapor or a mist. It comes, it's in the moment, and then it goes. You've seen this on TV in games. I've been on sidelines of football games where you got those big mist sprays. And there's been times where I was at Mercer where nobody was around and I'm sweating. I'm like, well, I'm not a player, but I'm about to see how this works. And I would step right in front of the mist and it feels amazing. Like it's almost gives you hypothermia, how cold it is. But then it hits me and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And then 3 seconds later, it rotates to somebody else. And in those 3 seconds, all that comfort fades away. And that's what he's saying. Life is meaningless in the sense of it's a vapor. It comes and then it goes right out the window. And we have just a short time to be here on this earth. So let's skip on down to to verse 13. There's more metaphors, but we'll skip those for time and go to 13. So I want to set the scene here. He says a couple of these metaphors. He's talking to the young people. And then he uses a couple phrases. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. So let's pause there. Smartest man, most powerful man, wealthiest man, wisest man. He puts it all together with perspective, crunches the numbers, gets it down, the payoff pitch right here, and this is what he says. Fear God and keep his commands, for this is the duty of all mankind. Now, you would think the wisest, smartest person may write a whole book on this perspective, but he doesn't. He boils it down to 5 words that we are to do. Fear God, keep his commands. And I know when you heard my voice and you read it on the screens and you saw fear God, immediately something went in you. Are we supposed to be afraid of God? Are we supposed to be afraid? And let me kind of parse this for you. What he's talking about here, the fear of God, there's a difference between fear God and being afraid of God. Those are 2 different playing fields. We are to fear God. Now, let me step over here in just a second. There are probably times in your life in the way you've obeyed or disobeyed, I should say, the way you've acted, where, yeah, you probably should be afraid of God because of what you were doing or what you were engaged in or complete unbelief of God. So there's a healthy fear there. But what he's saying is we are not to be afraid of God, but we are having a heart posture to fear God. And how do we fear God? What does it say? Moses even tells the children of Israel in Deuteronomy 13 that you're to follow and fear him. And how do you know if you fear God? Do you honor him? Do you worship him? Do you obey him? Do you acknowledge him? Do you hold God in the highest esteem of your life? Because if you don't, then you're not fearing him. And I'm scared sometimes in my life, and I'm certainly sure in your life as well, because we're just people, that sometimes our relationship with God is not a fear-based in terms of a holy reverence, but it's more of a vending machine-based. Here's what you know about vending machines. You don't put them right in the middle of the room. They're off to the sides. Sometimes they're in the corner. Sometimes they're around the corner. They're not the prominent thing in the moment. They're just out there just in case. It is not the main course, and it's not there to sustain you forever. It's just there in case you need something in a pinch. In case something goes bad or you forgot something or breakfast went too quick and now it's lunch, but it's not lunchtime yet, and you need just a little something, a little pick-me-up, just to tie you over till something big. And I think sometimes in our lives, we view God that way. Instead of a holy reverence of who he is and how big he is and how powerful he is, we treat him like a vending machine. He's just over in the corner. And you know, when my day's going okay, I don't really need anything. But you know what? If it's just not great or something bad just happened, I'll go search for a vending machine. And I'll go to God and say, will you get me this to make it through the rest of the day? And I'll take it, and then I'll ignore it, and then I'll go about my day. And sometimes we use God as he's our own personal spiritual vending machine. Instead of being submitted unto him, instead of being submitted unto a healthy, reverent fear of who God really is. When you look at God and fearing him in that healthy reverence, it's some of us have lost this moment. It's okay to feel a little uncomfortable when you're in the holies. Here's what I know about that. There are times in my life where I've met people and I've talked to people, and some of the people I'll cut up with and it's all good, no big deal. But there are times where people have come into my life and I hold them at such high esteem or high regard that when I'm around them, the goofiness of Billy with Matt and hanging out because we've known each other for 30 years is different than this person coming in going, ooh, he's different. There's an esteem, a reverence. There's something unique there. And that's what he's talking about fearing God. It's having a reverence. It's having a healthy fear of understanding who you're relating to. And you're not treating God as flippant. You're not treating God as casual. You're treating him as who he is, the almighty creator of the universe. And that's what Solomon's saying. Remember him when you're young. Remember the creator and fear him when you're young. One thing that happens when you fear God is it keeps you away from evil. Because a man who's marked by fearing God, whose life is devoted to fearing God, who's got God and is just deeply connected with him, has no room for sin. Proverbs even says, those who fear him turn away from sin. Casual sin does not creep into our lives when our lives are devoted on fearing God. There's no room for two in that room. It's when we stop fearing him, it's when we take our eyes off him just a little bit, when we downgrade him to fearing God to maybe just casual God. That's when sin and chaos starts creeping into our lives. The fear of God should not be an app for you. It should be the centrality of who you are in your soul. I'm a person who fears God in a healthy, respectable, non-flippant way because he's a creator and the sustainer of life. Look at this principle on screen. To fear God is not terror that drives us from him, but just the contrary. It's that reverence that draws us to him. So do you fear God today? Are you allowing his reverence to draw you unto him so you have a healthy view of who God is? Or are you living a life that you're afraid of God in an unhealthy way? Well, those are the first two words. The last three, I wish it was something that you've never heard before or I've never read before, but it's the basic that always slaps us in the face, isn't it? He says, keep his commands. In the Greek, the word keep is not just to hang on to, but it's to preserve, it's to guard, it's to watch carefully. It's realizing these commands of God are powerful, they're sustaining, they're blessable, and they take care of you if you hold on to them in the proper way. But I'm scared sometimes in my life, and of course, I'm sure in some of your lives as well, there's a danger thinking obedience is optional. Obedience is not optional because he says, keep my commands. There's a danger in thinking that we want salvation without surrender, and we need both. There's a danger in thinking that it's optional. And Jesus, what Jesus always does, people get Jesus wrong so many times. They say the Old Testament's got all these heavy laws, but Jesus just says love, love. He does. But what Jesus does when you study his words, he takes some of these prime Old Testament statements and he goes, hey, fear God, keep his commands. He goes, let me take the keep his commands and let me take it a step further and go, if you love me, you will keep my commands. He ratchets it up, doesn't lower the bar, makes it even harder. If you love me, you will keep my commands. I think we all understand what obedience does. And if I listed all the different commands in the New Testament or even in the Old Testament, there would be hundreds of them. Don't have time to go through there. But I want to take it from not the obedience, but I'm taking what we can all relate to, the disobedience. And I'm banking on every one of us in this room at least once has been disobedient. Can we even the playing field on that? We've all been disobedient at least once in our lives. And as he moves to keep his commands, what does it look like when we don't keep his commands? And there's a couple things here I want to say. Disobedience will separate us from a close relationship with God. And graduates, this is primarily your day. But the more distance you put between you and God, God will always love you and he will always be there. But the more you move, the more distance you put between him and you. It's not that he doesn't love you, but that intimacy will break or fade. Some of you graduates are going off to school. And though you've been in a home and you've been rubbing shoulders with mom and dad, some of you are going off to school. And so no longer are you going to be rubbing shoulders. So guess what happens? That distance kind of pulls that intimacy. And then you got to be intentional about reconnecting with the people that care about you the most. Disobedience creates distance. And in so many times in our lives, I think we find ourselves living in a world where we're so disobedient, but we don't understand the distance of how far away we've moved from God. And sometimes we come to church and we go, man, that was an uplifting. Not today, but other times, right? That was a joke. You can laugh. It's okay. But sometimes we come, that wasn't a great song. It didn't stir me. Or, man, that nobody talked to me. Or, that was a good message, but it didn't apply to me. No. It should always look in the mirror first Am I being distant to God? Because no matter how good something is over here, if you've been walking away from that intimacy and not keeping his commands, you will begin growing distant to God. Disobedience also hardens the heart. The more a person ignores their conviction and walks away from God, the easier sin becomes in their life. Because here's how it works. Something comes in your life and you fight it. Then you stop fighting it, but then it bothers you. And over time, if you don't do anything about it, you begin just tolerating it. And if you don't do anything about it, then you begin justifying it. And then if you don't do anything about it, eventually you will normalize it. And you get to the point of normalization, especially in our culture today, when our culture tries to get you to laugh at things that you know are against God's laws, then it normalizes in your life. And then you can't push it out because now you've laughed at it. And it's just part of your culture. And there's a heaviness there. And he's saying disobedience will harden your heart. It will harden my heart. And a hardened heart is dangerous because over time, a hardened heart just becomes such a tight shell and everything spiritual just hits it and bounces straight off. And you live with a hardened heart. And lastly, disobedience affects those around you. I'll be honest and say, when you go off to school and you say, hey, nobody will know, trust me, somebody will know. And let me scare you graduates for just a second. Mom and dad won't know. There's something weird about having kids, and we've all had them. When they're in trouble, you sense something. It's just weird, and when you have kids, you'll understand it. And there have been a million times where I'll go, something just doesn't feel right. And you pick up the phone and make a call. Or you send a text. There's always something. Your sin never just affects you. There's always ripple effects. And it takes people further than they ever want to go. So be careful to be disobedient from following his commands, because your actions never just affect one person. They affect a whole group of people. Look at the screen here. This is not about living perfect, because that's impossible. But it's about having a life oriented towards obedience rather than resistance. If you have your heart set on obedience, doesn't mean you're always going to hit it every time. But when you fell forward, and then you get back up and you do it again, and you constantly go after the obedience versus your heart being set towards disobedience. It's not an occasional effort. It's a fully fledged, I'm going to be consistently obedient to the best that I can do. He says to keep his commands. This is how it is. Those commands are so valuable to ignore. His commands are so holy to treat casually. You keep them deep within your heart. You hang on to them. You lock them in so that when chaos tries to come, you have something to defend your heart and your life and your future with. Keep his commands and fear God. Now, as we primarily talk to graduates, and that makes sense looking back, all of us are in anywhere from our 20s to our 200s in here today, somewhere around there. And you know as well as I do, those 5 words are everything. The motive and the heartbeat of your life, fearing God, and the heartbeat of your life, keeping his commands, will put you in complete chaos in life or will put you on steps of blessing in life. It's not just a graduate appeal, it's an all of us appeal. And though Solomon says, hey, when you're young, make sure. Some of us have a little bit of time. Some of us have some good time left. Some of us have a lot of time left. The call is still for us today, no matter where you're at, no matter what time you have left. Fear God and keep his commands. And at the very end of verse 13, such a unique phrase Solomon gives us. This is the whole duty of mankind. This is the whole duty of mankind. So in other words, your purpose in life, when it all comes down to it, live a life of fearing God, live a life of keeping his commands. And when you do those 2 things, then you're pleasing to him and he walks with you. But when you don't do them, You invite chaos, you invite heartache, and you invite tragedy into your life. Now, some of you are here today and you're like, man, Billy, that's maybe a little heavy. I'm just here for the first time. I just came because somebody's gonna buy me lunch afterwards, right? And maybe some of you, spiritual stuff is not your thing, and that's okay. Here's the beauty of that. If that's you, for a bunch of us, that was us one time as well. And then somebody invited, and then somebody saw. And here's what I'll say to you, if that's you, we do this every Sunday for this reason, because we know the power of God changes hearts and lives forever. And as I said, if I look back to my 18-year-old self and said, what is the most important thing you should be involved in? It's the local church, because that's where the hope of the world is. It's the story of Jesus and how Jesus can change your life, how Jesus can change your future, and how Jesus can forgive your past. And so if that's you today and you've never done that and this is new to you, man, our encouragement, our prayer for you is to connect with that story and come talk to us at some point after the service, because we want to see the gospel radically change your life. So that's some group, but there's a lot of people in this room. I am willing to bet there's a lot of us. We call ourselves followers, but we're toying and being flippant with the fear of God. We're toying and being flippant with the presence of God. We'll get to him when we get to him, when we need something, but not every day, God, I need you. And I bet there's a bunch of us in here can honestly say, I have not been keeping his commands. I know what they are, I get it, but I haven't been keeping it. And you wake up wondering why your spirit is dry. You wake up wondering why you just don't feel connected. You wake up wondering why I'm not the way I used to be and I don't view spiritual things the same way I used to, because you're not keeping his commands, which he says is the duty of all mankind. So today, the challenge for you, and it's so many of us, and I think it'll probably be the rest of us, examine your heart, examine your life. Are you keeping God's commands? And are you fearing him with a reverence that you may have lost from years ago?